Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So next month on October 15th, the next Social Security cost of living adjustment increase is going to be announced. Of course, there is going to be an increase taking place next year in 2026 because of that. But in reality, are benefits only falling further behind from inflation because of the way that they actually calculate the COLAs? In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the possibility of the proposed idea of a $1,400 stimulus check to all Social Security beneficiaries and whether or not that's actually a reality of taking place. But before we go ahead and dive into it for today, if you would like to receive up to $200 in free stock or $200 in free cash, in a pinned comment below, I will be leaving a link to Robinhood. All you have to do is once you click on that link is just sign up for a free account and then simply link your bank account. You do not even have to make an opening deposit. At that point in time, Robinhood will be sending you one free stock worth all the way up to $200. And if you'd rather just have the cash, all you have to do is once you receive the free stock is just sell it for what it's worth and then transfer the cash value right back to your bank account. Okay, so diving right into it for today. So once again, coming up on October 15th, the upcoming next Social Security cost of living adjustment increase is said to be announced. Of course, there is going to be an increase taking place next year in 2026 for all Social Security beneficiaries. But in reality, even with this COLA increase coming up in 2026, does that mean that benefits are only going to be falling further behind what inflation actually is? In today's video, we're going to be examining that fact. Plus, is there an actual possibility of a $1,400 stimulus check passing through Congress and being signed into law by the president that is being proposed? We're going to be covering all of that in today's video, but starting out with this article here from USA Today, they say that on October 15th, the Social Security Administration will reveal what's expected to be a flurry of changes to the program in 2026, including the most prominent of all, the cost of living adjustment, with most retired workers reliant on their monthly check in some capacity to meet their expenses. Knowing how much they'll receive in the upcoming year is paramount of importance. Although Social Security's 2026 COLA is on pace to make history for the first time in nearly 3 decades, all signs point to most beneficiaries facing something of a double whammy next year. So following the release of the August inflation report, nonpartisan senior advocacy group, the Senior Citizens League, held firm on its 2026 COLA forecast of 2.7%. Meanwhile, independent Social Security and Medicare policy analyst Mary Johnson upped her estimate by 0.1% to 2.8%. And though these estimates are subject to change, the modest inflationary pressure derived from President Donald Trump's tariff and trade policy is expected to keep the 2026 COLA at or potentially above 2.7%. And if TSCL's estimate proves accurate, the average retired worker beneficiary would see their monthly payout climb by $54 in 2026. As for workers with disabilities and survivor beneficiaries, the average benefit in their case would increase by approximately $43 per month, respectively. So again, next year we are looking at a pretty average to above average increase. Again, 2.7 to 2.8%. That is going to be higher than what we received this year in 2025 at 2.5%. And that is actually, surprising because once again, back in January of this year, they were expecting a COLA increase in 2026 of something much lower than this year, something like 2%. But because of Trump's tariff policy, we've actually seen inflation begin to creep right back up again. And that's why we're looking at a COLA increase next year of anywhere between 2.7 to 2.8%, possibly even as high as maybe 2.9%. We will have to wait and see. But even though there is going to be an increase, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing or that you're actually coming out ahead or you're going to be able to buy more things. This is simply only keeping up with inflation, and it may not actually be keeping up with inflation. So once again, this article here goes on to say that a double whammy awaits many of Social Security's 70 million beneficiaries in 2026. So they say that, but while things look great on paper, the practical application of Social Security's 2026 COLA is a long way from perfect. The first problem that age beneficiaries are going to run into is an expected loss of purchasing power. So according to a TSCL analysis released last year, the buying power of a Social Security dollar tumbled by 20% from 2010 to 2024. So in other words, in the last 14 years, your buying power has decreased by 20%. So $100 back then is only worth $80 today. What you're receiving with cost of living adjustments is simply not keeping up with inflation. We're losing right around 20% of our purchasing power over the last 14 years alone. They also say the CPIW does a generally poor job of accounting for the expenses that matter most to seniors. Is an inflationary index tasked with tracking the spending habits of urban wage earners and clerical workers who in many instances are working age Americans not currently receiving a Social Security benefit. These folks spend their money quite differently from the 87% of Social Security recipients who are 62 and older. So that should be pretty obvious. Someone who is the age of 20, 30, and even 40 is going to spend their money quite a bit differently than someone who is 65 and older, someone receiving Social Security benefits. So while they're using an index for inflation for people in their 20s through 40s, the same index for them as they are for your Social Security cost of living adjustment, it does not make a whole lot of logical sense. Now they go on here to say that the second part of the double whammy pertains to seniors dually enrolled in Social Security and traditional Medicare. Most of these dual enrollees have their Part B premium, which is the segment of Medicare responsible for outpatient services, automatically deducted from their monthly benefit. And according to estimates in the Medicare Trustees Report, the Part B premium is expected to rise by 11.5% in 2026 to $206.20 per month. This follows more modest increases of 5.9% in back-to-back years. Most age beneficiaries will see some or all of their 2026 cost of living adjustment offset by this sizable jump in the Medicare Part B premium. So for instance, if you're receiving an increase of only $30 a month, but your Medicare Part B premium is also going to be rising by $21.50 per month, at that point your increase goes from $30 a month down to like $8 or $9 a month. So this Medicare Part B premium is really going to be eating into your cost of living adjustment increase, unfortunately. Now there is right now a bill in Congress that could fix a whole lot of this issue. It would result in higher cost of living adjustments in most years. So what the bill is called the Boosting Benefits and COLAs for Seniors Act. It was introduced all the way back in last year, March 2024, by Senators Bob Casey. There was also co-sponsors of the bill, Senators Richard Blumenthal, Peter Welch, John Fetterman, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Bernie Sanders. And basically what the bill did is it calls for the SSA to adjust Social Security benefits based on the CPIE instead of the CPIW, arguing that it would result in larger increase in payments. So basically what the CPIE does is it tracks expenses of people who would typically receive Social Security benefits of those aged 62 and older, whereas once again the CPIW tracks expenses of people currently in the workforce like ages 20 through 50. So it only makes sense to switch over to something like the CPIE, and you can look at the chart up here on the screen. We have both an orange marker and we also have a green marker. The green marker, of course, is the CPIE and the orange marker is the CPIW. So you can see that in most years, the CPIE, the green marker, is higher, went up higher. The inflation went up higher with the CPIE than what it did the CPIW. Of course, there are some years here and there, such as back in 2023, where the orange marker, the CPIW, is actually higher than the CPIE, but on average, the CPIE is typically a little bit higher than the CPIW. But even if they did switch it over to the CPIE, again, over the last 14 years, we've lost 20% of buying power because the CPIW quite simply has not kept up with inflation. So what they could actually do is they could send out, everyone receiving Social Security benefits a one-time $1,400 stimulus check. This would help keep them up with all the money that they've lost over the years because of the cost of living adjustments not keeping up with inflation. And right now, one senior advocacy group, the Senior Citizens League, is pushing lawmakers in Congress to pass a bill that would include a one-time check of $1,400 for Social Security beneficiaries. Leave your thoughts and comments below. Would you be in support for that? Also, the Senior Citizens League asks folks, do you want to earn an extra $1,400 paid to you with your Social Security benefits? Obviously, 95% of respondents said yes, 1% said no, and 4% were uncertain. I'm very surprised that even 1% of people said no, they would not take a $1,400 extra stimulus check. Then they also said, do you expect your elected representative in Congress to vote yes for the $1,400 benefit bump legislation? 69% of respondents said yes, 25% said uncertain, and only 6% of respondents said no. I'm very surprised that people have that much faith in their lawmakers. I suppose that's actually a good thing. And then finally, they asked, do you have expenses that an extra $1,400 could help you purchase, but you otherwise could not afford? 80% of respondents said yes. But with that said, leave your thoughts and comments below to those same questions. How would you respond to those questions? Do you have pretty high hopes that the lawmakers currently in Congress would pass a bill that would include a $1,400, a one-time $1,400 check to you, a Social Security beneficiary? Leave your thoughts and comments below. But that's all we have for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.